Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge. My name is Howard Pinsky, Senior XD Evangelist here at Adobe. It's Friday. I'm excited for the weekend. Hopefully all of you are as well. If you are tuning in live here on Behance, let me know in the chat who you are and where you're tuning in from. We've got Van and Undine and Cody and Kareem and Islam and Ankita, which is, it's like 3:30 in the morning where they are right now. Ariana and who else do we have in here? That's it for now, but let me know. I know there's a lot of lurkers in here. Laura, hey everyone. Yeah, hey everyone again. And I was live a few hours ago with my masterclass. If you missed that, hop over there after this stream, check it out. And do we have anyone after me today? That's a good question. Oh, we do. We have Andrew and Nick right after me. So stick around after the stream. Andrew and Nick are coming up. We've got Megan and Ella and Aubrey. Great to see everyone. Alberta, Canada. It's 3:00 p.m. There's someone from Toronto, my hometown. Awesome. A lot of Canadians today. I love it. Trinidad. Awesome. Great to see everyone. All right, so day number 4 of the Adobe XD Daily Creative Challenge is upon us, wrapping up the week. So let me hop over to my screen to go over this whole shindig. If you missed it, you can still catch up. And on day 1, which I'll talk about in just a second, let me actually open up Discord because I don't have that open. It's opening. And while that's opening and doing its thing, let's go over the Daily Creative Challenge. So every single day you're going to receive a challenge. And Rachel's saying, is the masterclass good for beginners? It can be. I try, even though it's more advanced in these masterclasses, I do try to explain certain things as if a beginner might be watching. So I want to accommodate everybody. So Daily Creative Challenge. Everyone, hey Sam, I'm all over the place today. Every single day, Monday to Friday, except the first Monday, you're going to receive a challenge. You can join us in our Discord community chat. Let me hop over there. And here we are in Discord, 55,000 designers in Discord. You can get all the information about the challenges. You can chat amongst other designers, ask questions, share tips and tricks. Also, for day number 1, we did something a little bit different. And I want to remind all of you, because the weekend's coming up. I know some of you like to design on the weekends. You still have time to participate in challenge number 1. We're doing an XD Designers Spotlight, and one of you will be featured and interviewed by our own Matt Ray. He's not in the side right now, but he'll be there eventually. And make sure to use the keyword XD Creative Challenge, just for that challenge though. The rest of the challenges, you'll use the keyword XD Daily Challenge. So make sure to hop into Discord, read all that information. You can also go to letsxd.com/rules to get more information there as well. You can also watch the daily challenges live every single day, Monday to Friday. I'm live at 2:00 Pacific time. We're also running a Photoshop and an Illustrator challenge, which is wonderful. So any application that you're looking for, they have challenges. And then share your work, Discord or on Behance, using the keyword XD Daily Challenge, unless you're working on day number 1. All right, very quick recap. Day number 1, we covered the landing page using background blur. Again, that's the special, exclusive, fancy, whatever you want to call it, different challenge. So check that out. Day number 2, we talked about interactive maps using scroll groups. Super fun. Yesterday, we tackled a drop-down menu, which is more of like a notification center, but we used nested hover and scroll groups again, a lot of fun stuff. And today, we're going to be diving into the world of 3D Transforms and Auto-Animate, and we're going to be designing out a card flip animation. This is going to be a lot of fun. I have a video on my YouTube channel on how to do this as well if you want a more condensed version of this daily challenge, but this is going to be fun. We're going to do something a little bit different, and let's go ahead and grab the starter file. And if you haven't participated in this challenge just yet, we're doing something different with these challenges or these challenge templates where you can download it directly through your Creative Cloud. You don't have to touch anything. Look, no hands. And it's going to open up directly in Adobe XD, which is wonderful. You don't have to worry about Dropbox. You don't have to worry about CC libraries. It just opens up. Ah, the burrito. I agree, Ankita. I don't know where the burrito came from, but hey, burritos. All right. So here's some inspiration. I actually provide this file on letsxd.com/3D. Thank you, Cody, for that link. So if you do want to download this sample file, letsxd.com/3D, Cody might put that in the chat as well. But let's go ahead and begin. So before we dive into 3D transforms themselves, is it one thing or is it two things? Because it's plural, but it's one thing. I don't know. English is weird. Anyways, so what we're going to do, we're going to start designing out the card. So I'm going to grab my rectangle from the tools panel on the left, and just draw one out. I'm not too concerned about the size of it. It doesn't have to be, credit card size or whatever it is. We can always adjust it, right? So what I'm going to do is I have my rectangle. I'm going to round out the corners. Let's go for about 24 pixels. You can either do that on canvas using your little handles on the inside of a shape, or within the properties inspector right over there, right? So I've got that looking pretty good, and I don't need a border. Possibly, we may add a border. Depending on the color of the actual shape, you may want to add a little bit of a border just to separate it from the background. However, because I'm feeling very colorful today, I am going to hop over. Cody says, I have all the links. I appreciate that, Cody. I'm going to hop over to Finder. I've got some fun looking, very vibrant looking patterns that I grabbed from Adobe stock, and I exported them from Illustrator, or it might have been from Adobe XD, I don't remember. But I'm going to drag one of them directly onto the shape. It's going to mask it really nicely, and now we have something to work off of. And I love this color because white text is going to look great on it, and a few other different colors is going to look nice as well. Hey, Helmet, welcome. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my rectangle and I'm going to draw out an avatar at the top. And if you've been watching these streams over the last, I don't know, was it 4 days, something like that? You know where I'm going with this, right? You know what's coming next. Toy faces. So I've got my avatar looking pretty good. And of course, I've showed many times in the past, you can grab an image from Finder, you can grab an image from a plugin, but I'm just on such a toy faces kick lately. So I'm going to go into my libraries panel. I'm going to go back to my CC libraries, and I do have the toy faces loaded in. And look at all these amazingly colorful faces. Look, they have astronauts. Look at that. Isn't that cute? And they have ones with pink backgrounds, and they have ones with red backgrounds, green backgrounds. These are just adorable. Let's go for the astronaut. All right. Cornell says, guess who's back? Back again. I'm not going to sing it or rap it, but yeah, I got it. Sam says, your PlayStation redesign was absolutely incredible. Thank you, Sam. I appreciate it. Look, Cody with the links again. Cody's just on it today. All right, so we've got our avatar looking pretty good. And now we want a name for this person. So I'm going to grab my text layer and I'm going to type out name, right? I'm going to make sure to center it. And you know what? Just because Cody is so good with the links today, this is Cody Bear. Doesn't really look like Cody Bear, but you know what? We're running with it. And then right below, we want some information about Cody Bear. Master of the links. Now that's, secondary information. So it's a little bit too large. So I'm going to go ahead and Sam says also, do you see the toy face, the ad? Oh, I haven't seen the ad. No, but I did order a toy face. So I am waiting for that. I know the artist is completely swamped. So it might take a while, but I have a toy face in the works and I am so excited. You have no idea. All right, I'm going to drop the opacity just a little bit. Again, this is a secondary text layer, so it doesn't have to be as large, the weight doesn't have to be as heavy, and the opacity, well, we should have it fairly, readable. It doesn't have to be 100%, so maybe 70 possibly, maybe. We'll see, right? Okay, now down below we want a button. So again, rectangle. Everything's done with a rectangle, right? Let's draw out a button, just like that. Maybe I'll make it a little bit longer. And for this one, I'm gonna round out the corners again. And we may want a nice gradient for this, right? So I'm gonna click on the fill, change from solid color to a linear gradient, just like that. And let's go for a nice pinkish red gradient. Something like that. Now that's obviously terrible, but maybe at the bottom color, we'll just add a little bit of purple in there, right? Just a little bit of purple, just like that. Little bit of purple, happy little purples, right? Looking forward to a Howard toy. Me too. I can't wait. All right, so we've got that gradient looking pretty good. And maybe just to separate it a little bit and add a little bit of depth, we're going to add a bit of a shadow. So I'm going to turn shadow on. I'm going to bump up the Y value so it's pulling away from that button, and then really crank up the blur just so that it's kind of nice and soft. But to add a little bit of color to this, I'm going to open up the color picker, and let's go for somewhat of a bluish purple, right? We want a color that kind of matches the background color. Just like that. Again, very subtle, right? There we go. So if we turn off the shadow and then on the shadow, it looks okay. Maybe I'll blur this a little bit more. 24 looks pretty good, right? And then in the center, we may want, let's say, I don't know, what do we put in here? Learn more? Now that sounds weird about a person. Follow? Possibly, I don't know. And we're gonna make this bold because this is a call to action. It's a little bit too large. Let me drop this to about 32 pixels. And there we go. So it's looking okay. Let me actually go ahead and I'm gonna group these. I'm gonna group these elements and call this button. Whoops, I'm gonna move this up a little bit. And I'm just gonna shift this in just a touch. And of course you can use padding as well if you want to. And we discussed stacking and padding yesterday, I believe, a little bit. And we're going to talk more about that in the coming challenges. So there is the front of our card, but of course we need the back. And I'm going to make sure in my layers panel to group all of these elements that I just selected, and I call this front. All right, let's move this over here and whoop, shift this over, and we're going to start working on the back of the card, which might show a little bit more information about Cody in this case. So let me hop over to Finder one more time, only because I do want a little bit of a different background. So I've got this one here, looks pretty good. I also have this blue here, might be a little bit too light. So I am going to choose this blue and just boop, pop it in there. Now, what you're probably noticing is that this pattern in particular has a lot of very bright lines on it. So it's going to be a little bit difficult to see the text. We can probably see it, right? You can probably get away with it. But if you want to make sure that everything is nice and legible and you can, the background's nice and subtle, you can do this, duplicate the background layer, and I'm going to fill it with one of the colors that's on this background, this color here, right? I'm going to move it behind. And then just take the opacity of this particular layer and just drop it down a little bit, right? And now it's nice and subtle, right? And I can group these, call this background, bam. Sam says, did you ever get the blur to the size you like and change the opacity rather than making it more blurred? I'm not sure what you're referencing, so let me know in the chat what you're referencing, and maybe I'll get back to you. Now, let's do a little bit of rearranging here. Let's Marie Kondo this. Just move things around a touch because this is a little bit more information about this particular. Now, this orange on this blue, so I may just add a bit of a border. Just to, that orange and blue is just not working, right? So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to move this around a little bit. And we may want some maybe follower information about Cody, right? So let's go ahead and type out followers like that. We're going to make this a little bit smaller. Now for here, we can probably bump the opacity of these back up to 100%. And then underneath, we might want how many followers Cody has. Let's say 24,000. Makes it a little bit larger because that is the primary information in this particular case. And let's bold it. Semi-bold is fine. Right? Get it just right. Right? And then whoop, duplicate this over. And this might be how many posts Cody has. Posts. And then maybe she has 42 posts, right? And then maybe just to separate this a little bit, we're going to grab our line and whoop, drag this on down. And that looks pretty good, right? Make sure this is in the center. And what we can do is make sure everything's organized, group some of these. This is followers, just like that. We've got our posts, group that, posts. I can't spell today. And then we can select, and then just hit this button right here at the top to make sure everything is aligned really nicely. Beautiful. All right. Perfect. That's looking okay. It's not looking great. Maybe I'll make Cody's face a little bit larger and then move some of this stuff around. Make sure it's centered. Okay. So we've got that looking okay. You know, I'd probably put one more thing over to the right over here, but we're going to leave it for now because we want to make sure we get to the 3D transforms portion of this. And we're going to move this over, and this is going to be the main call to action. So we're going to stick with follow, but I'm not digging the purple on this particular blue background. And of course I could have gone with the same background as over here, but I do want to shake it up a little bit. So I'm going to change the color just to a nice solid white. And then I'm going to change the color of the text layer to one of these blues. And I definitely want to change that shadow. It's not working. The background's blue, so we'll make that blue. And maybe drop the opacity, right? And then maybe one more button over in this side. This will be the secondary button. So let's go ahead and make this, let's say, chat. I'm going to turn off the fill, set a border, make sure this is white. Bam, right? Perfect. Looking pretty good. Now, of course, these buttons don't really fill in really nicely, but you know what? We can work on that. We can tweak it to our liking, but for now, we will just leave it as is. Oops, I missed something. There we go. All right. Sam says the blur behind the button. Oh, okay. Instead of making it more subtle by making it bigger, you drop the opacity so the blur stays the same size, but the more subtle to the eye. Pretty specific, no worries. Yeah, I think that's what I did, right? So I have, oh no, I didn't. So, you know, the opacity is fairly high, but I think Sam is mentioning that you can drop the opacity so it's more subtle. Absolutely. And that way, as Sam mentioned, it kind of blends in with the background a little bit. So it's visually more pleasing, but it depends on what the background is, if it has more textures or patterns or whatever it might be. So lots of ways to do that. If I had more time, I would certainly spend it making things look pretty fancy. All right, so let's actually, this information, there's a lot of space over here. Let's actually just duplicate this one more time because I just want to fill out some of this information. And then over here, let's say links maybe. How many links Cody has posted? Probably like 592, to be exact. It's probably accurate. All right, so now we want to make sure to name this back, right? So we've got our front of the card. Let me collapse these groups. We've got our front card and we've got our back. Now, what we want to do, we want to start setting this up for 3D transforms. And this is where things get a little bit specific, so pay attention, right? I'm going to take the back of the card and I'm going to position it on top of the front. Let's center these, right? Now, think of it like a piece of paper. Do I have a piece of paper here? I have some envelopes, my address is on it. I can't do that. But think of it like a double-sided piece of paper, right? You're looking at the front and it looks like this, right? But the back of it is actually flipped 180 degrees. So that's what we're going to do first. In our properties inspector, we're going to turn on the 3D transforms option. Boop, just like that. And we want to rotate this back card 180 degrees. So this text field right here, and of course you can use the lovely gizmo on the canvas, but since we want it exactly 180 degrees, Kareem is exactly right, -1, 180, we're going to enter 180 inside of the properties inspector. Just like that, it rotates. But of course we want the back to be in the back, right? Now there's two ways to do it, but you still have to do the second way. You can move it to the back here, but that will cause a few problems, potential problems, when we actually get to animating. So inside of the properties inspector one more time, we want to control the Z depth, which will allow you to move things forward, move things back in space. So again, like a piece of paper, it's on a microscopic level, but the front is essentially a Z depth of 1, and the back is essentially a Z depth of -1, right? It'll just push it back in space just a tiny little bit. So now that those are set up, we'll also want the front to be 1, right? We want to place both of these groups inside of a larger group. So I have both selected, Command Control G, and I'll just call this card, just like that, right? Beautiful. Now we are ready to actually start the animation process. So what we're going to do, we're going to duplicate this artboard over to the right. Now I'm going to mention, because someone's going to ask, at the moment 3D Transforms does not work with component states. So we couldn't turn this into a component and then 3D transform it, at least inside. Like we couldn't create a hover state with a 3D transformed group, right? That might be coming in the future, possibly in the near future. Who knows? But it's being worked on, it's being explored, and if the team, it's a challenge. If the team can get it right, we'll definitely ship it. So we've got our second artboard, which we want to flip around and display the back of the card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, inside of the Properties Inspector with the entire group selected, 180 degrees, right? Now, what's going on, right? We flipped it 180 degrees, you would expect to see the back of the card. Well, almost. It did flip the back of the card over like we would expect, but we do have to adjust the Z depth a little bit. So we're going to grab the front layer, shift it to -1, and then the back layer, we're going to shift it to 1. There we go. Now, of course, we have a bit of a problem. You know, if I hide the back layer, we've got this little bit of Cody popping up at the top. So all I'm going to do is just drop this down a bit. And by the way, Command and Control T can show or hide your little gizmo, right? Sam says, can the front of the card stay at 0 or does it have to be 1? It can stay at 0. What I've noticed though, is because during the transition, the two cards essentially like move and kind of swap positions. Sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you notice it if it's at 0 and -1. Maybe I'll show you after, but I've just found it's more successful if you just set it to 1 and -1, but try it out, see what happens. All right, so we've got both of our artboards set up. We've got our front and we've got our back. And again, 180 degrees, -1, 1, and then on the next artboard, just kind of swap everything around. And now we want to actually trigger this animation. So into prototype mode, we go right at the top. We want to select the object or the group or the layer or the component that we want to trigger this animation. So I'm going to select the follow button and we're going to drag this handle all the way over here to this artboard. Boop. Now, from within the Properties Inspector, we want to change the type from transition to auto-animate. And if you're new to XD, choosing auto-animate will instruct Adobe XD to look at the differences between these two wired up artboards and animate those changes. So I have auto-animate selected. Let's go for a nice, okay, I'm gonna do a snap. This might help illustrate one of the point that Sam made. Let's go for snap and we'll do, let's say 0.6 seconds. And let's go ahead and preview the artboard. And zoom. Bit of a problem with snap, right? Ease in and out. Zoom. What did I do? Front, -1, back, 1. See this, let me try change this to 2. Let's see if that fixes it. Okay, that's weird. That is strange. I think I ran into something weird. But that, you know, that kind of goes off what Sam was talking about, is with the, you know, when you're working with the Z depth, if you set it too close to each other, then you could have some weird preview issues like that. That shouldn't happen. I tried this like 17 times earlier today and I didn't have a problem. So let me just move this up a little bit, right? Let's go for the back and like that. I don't know, maybe you have to do -180. This is the fun of live streaming. No matter how many times, look at that, no matter how many times you try it when you're setting things up, everything looks great. And then things break, right? Couldn't tell you. Things are, I'm gonna pass this on to the team and they will hopefully let me know what's going on. But you know what? Things happen. But that should work. It should work just fine. Let me try setting this to 0. No, for some reason there's a weird glitch, but it'll probably work for you. But that's how you essentially you create a card flip in Adobe XD. Did you have to change the opacity? You don't. I mean, I could. So I could just drop this to, let's say, 0. and that kind of works around it, but you shouldn't have to, right? So something's going on. I might have, I don't know what I did, but I'll figure it out. I'll pass it on to the team. And, that's the way it is when you're live streaming in front of a bunch of people. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. It worked all day today when I was designing this. The front, 0, and I don't know. I'll figure it out. But anyways, give it a shot. I also have a video that Cody posted a bit earlier on how to do this. Worked fine then too. Who knows? But big thank you to everyone who has joined me. I'm going to be back on Monday with day number 5 of the XD Daily Challenge. And what about the layers, Joyce is saying? I mean, that could potentially... let's hold on very quickly. I think I have a little bit of time. Let me go back. So let me undo let me go back here, front. Let me move this back. Okay. That's a workaround too, right? That's a workaround. Thank you, Joyce. Now, granted, you shouldn't have to do that. Just by changing the Z depth, that should do it, and it's done it many times in the past, but layers help too. There you go. Fun times, right? Again, thank you everyone. I'm going to be back on Monday. Stick around. Office hours is just in a few minutes, and I will see you all later.